Good afternoon. This is our first deeper dive into fresh material for Module 1 in our CSC 353 Systems Security course. And one of the things that I'm going to call out first that may appear to be pretty obvious is the name of our course. A computer system is often referred to as a collection of resources, beginning with hardware, layer 1. Tamira, do you remember CSC 243 networking?
Yes, I do.
Okay, good. How about you, Raheem?
Oh, yeah.
So layer 1 is that physical hardware layer. And then in networking, if you're using the OSI model, there are 7 layers in a system, and the topmost layer is called the application layer, right? The application layer, and there are services that actually run underneath that. In some contexts, users are referred to as layer 8. And a system can be defined as a collection of related resources with a user, right? So you have the human element. But there's a problem with this definition when it comes to our course. Our course isn't named System Security. Our course has a title with the plural, systems. And that's intentional because everything in this world now is connected. So we're not dealing with just one system. We're dealing with multiples of systems, right? And that's just one thing that I want to intentionally make a big splash about, because we don't emphasize that enough. We think in our connected home Wi-Fi environment, when we have something strange going on, that it necessarily has to do with just our device or our system, singular, right? That's what happens. Good afternoon, Ms. Sender. How are you? Ms. Sander, are you there?
Yes.
Okay, good. How's the audio?
Yeah, everything is okay.
Okay. So we were just explaining that a basic system is a collection of different resources and components, from hardware to operating system to software and a user. But the only problem with having a view, a system view about security, is that it's only one system. The title of our course is about systems security, right? And the truth is that we don't exist and operate anymore with a single computer system. We're always on a network. We're always connected. And there are many devices in our home and many systems. So it used to be simple when computers were so expensive. Everybody used a regular phone that had a hard wire and it was bolted to the wall. We didn't carry around smartphones that could operate on a Wi-Fi network without cellular networking at all, right? There are all these different components of a system to think about in terms of security, but beyond that, there is a huge and expanded challenge that comes with security, because in the world we live in here and now, we can't just think about one system or one device. We have to think about all of them and how they're all connected. Good afternoon, Kareem. How are you?
Good afternoon. Sorry I'm late. Just about to finish a lot.
No sweat. Are you, how's the audio on your end?
It's good. Yeah, I can hear you clear.
Good. Okay, I'm gonna go ahead and continue where we started. So one of the aspects of, I gotta tell you, to make matters worse, there's also a commercial interest in the mix. So when you're looking at systems security, you're not just looking at one system with a combination of resources. You're looking at the whole environment with a range and variety of devices and connected systems. And on top of that, are commercial interests. Now, what do I mean by that? In cybersecurity, we've come to understand there's a trade-off. Everybody understands, or at least we hope you understand, how many Gmail users do we have here? I use Gmail.
Yeah, I use it.
Gmail.
Does everybody use Gmail? Yes?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay. And Gmail is free, right?
Yep.
Indeed.
Right. I don't want to get philosophical here because this isn't a philosophy course, but does anyone believe that it's truly free?
I don't pay for anything.
You don't pay anything in monetary terms, but why does Google give you an account at no cost to you?
Maybe they're collecting user data.
Yeah, keep going.
They want to see what you're emailing, who you're emailing.
Uh-huh. Yeah, and why would they do that?
Ads.
Ads. Because somebody has something to sell. It's about commerce, right? They want to understand your interests, your trends, the things that matter to you. And here's the problem. Everybody's used to using Gmail now. Did you know a lot of businesses establish a single Gmail account?
No, I didn't know that.
Oh yeah. A lot of micro enterprises set up a Gmail account with the name of the business in the Gmail, right? But then if it's a small business and there's more than one person in the mix, you have more than one user on a single application, which was given to someone free. All right. Well, it was given to someone at no cost. Someone else is paying the cost. All right. What we've come to understand is that when it comes to commercial interests and everybody getting access to everything free, free Wi-Fi, free email, free whatever, it's not really free. The simple truth is we hear about stuff that's free, but someone is paying for it. The reality is that there's a cost. Someone else is paying for it. No free rides. Not really. When I was growing up and I was young, my parents told me nothing in life is free except a mother's love and God's grace. And that's it, right? So we were raised from the beginning to understand and be suspicious of anything that was given free. That's not how we live now. People use free apps all the time. You go to app stores and use free apps all the time. And they're not really free. There is a cost. It's just that you're provided the app, you're provided the resource, and someone else picks up the tab. So it's at no cost to you, but do not be deceived. Someone else provided that resource, that free resource, for a reason. And that's a part of the system dynamic that is a layer beyond the hardware and the software and everything else. Hello, Kareem. How are you today?
Hello? Oh,
Hello?
you see Raheem.
Oh, I'm sorry. I meant Akeem. Yes,
Afternoon, sorry, I had Wi-Fi issues.
not a problem. Was it free Wi-Fi?
No, home
No,
Wi-Fi.
it wasn't free Wi-Fi. It was your Wi-Fi that you pay for. Okay.
Yeah,
Yeah, I had a brain skip there, Kareem. Sorry. All right, so one of the purposes of this course is to expand your thinking about security from a single context to a multifaceted context. And I want you to think we're not just talking about a single system with multiple and related resources that interact with each other. We're not talking about just a series of connected devices and systems in an environment. And certainly that would, that would be systems security, right? Because you have more than one system in the mix. And did I ask how many of you have heard the chain is only as strong as its weakest what?
Link.
Link. The chain is only as strong as its weakest link. Did you know that your exposure to malicious activity increases dramatically when any one of the devices in a network environment is compromised? Did you know this?
Yes.
Yeah. So you know what happens when people see somebody getting stupid on the internet and they're like, well, if they blow up their machine, that's on them, right? If you're serious about the business environment, you don't allow somebody to get stupid on their system if your system is connected to it. Because when they hurt themselves, it's the quickest blink of an eye for your injury next. That's the reality of what we're talking about. If we're talking about professional use of technology, the technology you need to make a living free is bad. We have to change our thinking about some things. And free is bad. When you have a Gmail account for a small business, but more than one person uses it because, well, that business operates. And, there are folks that help the business owner. If more than one person has access, that email account was designed for consumers, for the general public, so that somebody could figure out what they want to buy. It wasn't designed at all to support a small business. But we use it all the time. We're like, I got a lot of costs with a small business. I just started. So I'm going to start a Gmail account so that my customers can email me. Well, that's cool unless more than one person uses that account. Now you take a simple picture for a simple system, and then you straddle multiple users on top of a single system. And then think about it. If more than one person does this in a Wi-Fi environment, you have multiples of multiples. It gets very complex very quickly. It is terribly important to understand also can everybody see the screen?
Yeah.
Yes.
One of the challenges that we've identified is that people don't see the big picture. They only look at the one app or the one piece of hardware or the one network. They're not looking at the big picture in terms of all the systems in the mix. The other thing that we find is a huge challenge for system security is this idea of free. And there's so much free stuff. So people love free and they start mixing in free, and someone else is paying for that. They're not paying to design that application or resource to protect you. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
Yeah,
Does Google care if you're hurt, but they're making $1 jillion? I mean, okay, they care to the extent that they don't want you to sue them, but I hope you get my point. The other thing we're seeing that's a challenge for system security is this idea of components when they're integrated. So you have systems and services, right? And if you're looking at an organization, another weak spot with systems security happens between components. Now, what am I saying? Well, when people are trying to solve a security problem, they tend to address each component separately. So when it comes to login and security to identify somebody, it's all about using two-factor authentication now, or stronger methods of authentication. So when people sign on, you have better identity. The applications, we use safe coding practices. We disable features that aren't being used. Services, right? Or networks. Let's look at services. DNS, right? People use domain name service all the time when they're browsing the web. And that's something that's ubiquitous. That means it's everywhere. And you can't browse the web or use email. You can't do anything with social networking apps if DNS isn't working. So services, right? Down here, you have network components, and there's security that people know to work for networking. So they have firewalls, they have intrusion detection systems, they have spam filters on email. They have all this network-centered security devices to help improve security, right? You can configure TCP/IP. It's called IPsec. There's an encrypted version of IP networking. And then on top of that, we have encryption to protect the confidentiality of data. So you have encrypted mechanisms to improve security. But here's the problem. All of these are different patches of security measures. And what sits in between them is a gap. Hackers understand everybody's got this part of the network locked down, but when you're authenticating across the network, let's say that again. When I'm combining these two things, now I'm working across the network and I'm working remotely. So I have to authenticate across a distance on that network. Now I have two components, and there's a space in between conceptually where if you don't pay attention, the hacker eats your lunch. This specific example is actually a very well-known challenge that's been around for 2 decades, actually 3 decades. It's been around for 30 years. When people are using the network to access their work remotely and they have to log in, they've discovered that they need to include a component called Radius, remote access, and then the acronym stands for something else. The thing is that Radius is a service that bridges the gap between this piece and that piece. So Radius allows for more secure authentication across a distance on an open network, so you don't have any problems, or you have fewer problems. This is where hackers really eat our lunch. They figure out, okay, here's where the security is. Now, how are these pieces related? Okay, now let's look in between. They know there are gaps, and conceptually, nobody thinks about how the pieces are used together. So those are some of the classic challenges that we face. And this is just to provide a kind of a opening perspective, or to prime the pump with you about what we're going to investigate in this course. The chain is only as strong as its weakest link. Any questions?
No, sir.
Okay. I'm not gonna go into this yet. We're gonna save that for next class, okay? But what I am gonna do is call out that we have a study guide for the first module, and we also have an addendum to the study guide, okay? I do want to tell you that if you find a mistake in the study guide and you're the first to email me a screenshot of that mistake, it could be a clerical error, it could be a link that doesn't work, it could be a picture that doesn't match new information. Because we're in a state of constant revision, our field of work is well, it's always rapidly changing. The threat requires us to always think ahead of the curve about stuff that needs to be changed. And you'll notice here from chapter 3, does everybody see this?
Yeah.
Okay. So why am I calling that out intentionally? When you get to section H in the study guide down below, and there's section H. Well, usually they're lettered. I may go back in there and add letters. Yeah, here you see section A for student learning objective A. By the time you get down to H, you'll realize that there were some updates, and we went from 4 basic methods to 5 basic methods. And that happened just within a few months. So what will happen is that you'll find out I'm constantly updating the material, and there may be some disconnects. If you, once again, does everybody see this word up here?
Yeah.
Yeah, what is that word?
Revision.
Revision.
Yeah. And which revision is this?
1B.
1B. All right. So if I go to the website and I look in here, and then I look in references, if you see 1A or 1C, it would mean that you're either ahead or behind. When I update things or correct things, I want everybody to have the latest information. Remember that in each module, you're going to engage some material, then you're going to work some assignments and activities. You're going to work a solution, right? So you'll do something hands-on for a solution. Then after that, you'll take an assessment. Before you take the assessment, you need to go back again into the references folder, and I will usually send an email that says, oh, I had to update the study guide because there's something new out. And now it's study guide revision 1C. Every now and then, I'll completely retool the material. I'll reorganize it because it's more sensible a certain way. In that case, you'll see revision 2. So if it's a major revision, the numbers will change. If it's a minor revision, the letters will change. The main thing I want you to understand is that you must check to see that you have the latest version before you take the assessment, okay? Any questions?
No.
Now, part of our goal is to help you assimilate a huge amount of information. And right now, I'm getting beat up a little bit by some of my peers, some of my colleagues. You see, in many other classes, the expectation is, well, students have a textbook to read, and it's up to them to read the textbook. Okay. So we have a course textbook. This is the course textbook right here. And if I look at the cover, of the textbook, it has this diagram here. And how many pages do we have?
A
Oh,
lot.
yeah, about 750 pages, right? And see, didn't I talk about the domain name system here? Woohoo! Didn't I talk about the networking TCP/IP, IP secure or IPsec? You can secure it. There's an encryption component. 750 pages. Now, here's the thing to understand. I'm going to call out specifics in the textbook. I'm going to call out specifics in the slides that are provided by the author. But the one thing I want you to do faithfully, and I really need some of you to do this better this semester. And yes, if you've had me before in a previous semester, I may be talking to some of you in the room right now. I take 750 pages and 25 years of experience, and then I create a study guide to put what matters most into plain English. Okay? And that's a labor of love. I don't know of many other professors that provide their own study guides to their students to help them break down the complexities of the textbook. This is a 7-page study guide, okay? How many pages in the addendum? In the addendum, there's only 3 pages. I hope that in our last session, I explained to you. I very much hope I explained this. If the information and resources, if the information provided is in the references folder, I expect you to know it, read it, learn it, memorize it. Okay? And I'm getting a little edgy here because I want to keep this real. But what I'm finding is that when we allow students to retake the assessments and they're in a hurry and they're just trying to make ends meet, what's happening is that they're blitzing, they're waiting too late, and then they gloss over the study guide. Then they take their first attempt of the module assessment. And in the recent semester, this fall, I haven't seen initial scores run as low. And that's discouraging, right? And I'm getting criticized for it. People are saying, well, Professor Kentop, you're making it too easy for students. And so they're slapping it, right? I want you to understand, I put this together to make it easy so that you would take the time to read the few pages I need you to read. I'm going to put it another way for some of you. If your first attempts of this module assessment are in the 20s and 30th percentiles, right? You're getting a 40% correct. You're not doing your part. And I'm going to tap you on the shoulder and I'm going to say, what gives? Okay. Your success and my success are tied together. I'm not successful as an instructor if you're not successful as a student. There are 2 things that are hounding students more than anything. I want you to be successful about system security, starting with the system of education we're using for this course. And there's a little bit of adjustment that's necessary this time, okay? I need you to take the time to go in here, to look over in the references what's in here, and in particular in this study guide. If you don't read and know it well before you take the assessment and you slop a quick, now, I'm not talking about cases where somebody gets in a car wreck and then they're in the hospital or they had extra shifts and they just don't have the time. Life happens. I'm talking about a pattern of, yeah, I wait till the last minute. I have to be reminded to take the exam or take the assessment, right? So Kentop has to text me twice because everybody's waiting on me to get the score in so we can review the items. So I'm holding up the whole class. It's a drag. And I just need to be transparent with you about some changes. This is a new year. 2023 is going to be a better year. We're going to have a better year in our class together, and we're going to learn great things. I have terrific resources. Good things are coming in this class, but together we'll get there faster. Okay. So if I ask you to do some things to tell me and show me what you have for personal technology, if I have to remind you and chase you down and ask you twice, by the time we get to Valentine's Day, there will be no love for me on Valentine's Day for you. I will ask you to drop the course because you reckon the karma for everybody else in the class. I have new toys, I have new systems, and they are state of the art, and they are really cool. And you can hack, and you can defend, and you can do stuff hands-on. But the only way that's going to happen is if I don't spend half of my time with the class chasing people down to do the basics. Okay. So this is the only time I'm going to get on a soapbox. This is the only time I'm going to preach. But I've been told by too many people in my circle, my wife, my children, my colleagues, that I'm too easy and I don't push my students to do better when they really need to do better. So when I push this YouTube out on the internet, I'm going to edit this part of our class out, but I don't want you to forget this conversation. Okay? I want everybody to read this and memorize it. By the end of the week, I'm going to ask you, I may start asking questions in class about because what I've done is taken 750 pages and in a few short study guides, I've made it simpler and easier for you to master. But I don't want it to be a struggle for either of us. Now, are there any questions about what I've just shared?
No, for me.
Okay. All right. So the other reason why we need you to read this study guide is because it is the anchor. It's the foundation upon which every house that we're going to build for each learning module is established. I'm going to jump all over the place between the slides and the textbook and some diagrams, and we're always going to come back to this reference. So if you know this well, you always have a starting point. I'll also tell you that when you're taking an assessment, if you press the control key and tap the letter F on your keyboard, a little find button comes up. And if there's a term like encryption, well, if you don't find it here, then you can look in the addendum. Our assessments are open book, right? And I'm shocked at the number of people that don't use Control F just to search for in the study guide or the addendum. I'm trying to coach you to, I'm actually helping you to cheat a little. Well, it's not cheating if it's open book, right? The trick is to master the material. And then when we get to the exam, by that time, you'll know it by heart. All right. So in any case, let's go ahead and let's start some basics on our first learning objective, right? We got to get some terms right. And the industry likes to use the word attack and vulnerability, and they tend to mix up a lot of the words. I am always going to use the word exposure whenever you see in the textbook or in slides. The term vulnerability really means exposure. So the hardware is exposed, the software is exposed, the user is exposed, an operating system is exposed. That means that there's a gap through which a malicious actor can exploit. Now, just because they can exploit, it doesn't mean they actually do. And when a malicious actor is in the neighborhood, that means that a threat is present, but that doesn't always mean they're active. So in order for us to have a common language as we talk about system security, we kind of have to standardize our terms. And that's a challenge because all the references kind of mix it up and it's a little different, okay? It is technically incorrect to call an attack an exploit, because an attack is when, all right, so an exploit is a method that is devised to take advantage of an exposure. Let me say that again. This should be a little bit of a refresher from Intro to Cyber. Everybody remembers me. Did I stress this a little bit in Intro to Cyber?
I remember you. Actually, no, I didn't take that class. Never mind.
Yeah. Anybody else? Shamira, you were in Intro to Cyber, right?
Yes, I was.
Uh-huh. And Kareem, I think.
Yes.
Okay. So this is a bit of a refresher, but exploit is a method. It's a series of tactics and techniques and procedures, right? And that's what the acronym TTP stands for. So an exploit is a method. It's a set of tactics, techniques, and procedures. That would be a good, so the acronym TTP can also be used interchangeably with this idea of what an exploit is. Now, a method to take advantage of an exposure does not become an attack until it's used. So logically, you can have a threat, you can have somebody who knows how to use an exploit, but that doesn't mean they're actually going to use it. It's only until they decide to use those methods actively on the exploit, on the exposure. And if you don't have an exposure, they can't do anything. If you have a threat that isn't active, you don't have to worry about it. So there are principles of systems security that make your life easy if you understand those basic concepts. When a threat can use or exploit an exposure, right? If they're going to actively exploit an exposure or a vulnerability, that's when it's called an attack. But in the literature, online, in our textbooks, a lot of times they just kind of use they mix all those terms together, right? So this is a critical paragraph. I really want you to, I said it's very helpful at the beginning of any task or a review of any system security. And most people don't think this way. Have any of you seen the movie Karate Kid?
Yeah, yeah.
Karate Kid?
Yeah.
Yeah, if you haven't seen the movie Karate Kid, you're missing out. But let me see, how many do we have? Everybody? Yeah, we do. Okay, so essentially, Mr. Miyagi, the sensei who's coaching Danya-san, the young student, he basically starts with very simple things. And he says, within short order, if you watch that movie and then the sequel that comes to it, he talks about focusing. It's almost like martial arts. If you look at every system and all of them combined as systems across a network, and then you start thinking all the time on the device or system side or network side at exposures. And then from the threat or adversarial side at exploits, it really helps you organize or strategize how best to get good security with the least effort. Okay? Because once again, if a system isn't exposed, well, nobody's going to attack it. If there isn't a method to exploit that exposure, we don't have to worry about security. If there isn't a threat in the neighborhood present, we don't have to worry about security. If the threat understands that attacking you will have serious consequences and it'll be bad, they don't actively use the exploit. They don't actively use the exploit, so we don't have to worry about security. In other words, there are multiple layers, just like in networking. There are multiple opportunities to shut down a security breach. If you understand the two primary concepts and how those work at every single level, okay? Now, one of the other things that's a boomerang, though, is that if you have an exposure, those exposures can complement or compound each other. And so you can have a very effective security system and a security program, and it can be undermined very fast because, well, there's an interaction between those exposures. In fact, malicious actors, the most advanced hackers are called what? Does anyone remember the term from Introduction to Cybersecurity? There's a special acronym for uber nerds who can hack the universe. The baddest hackers on the planet.
All I can think of is Black Hat.
Black Hat is probably a good analogy. Yes, it's a good analogy.
Anonymous?
What they do is very advanced. So the word advanced is in that acronym. Does that ring any bells? I'm hoping that in the Intro to Cyber course, if I do a quick search for advanced persistent threat. When we talk about an advanced persistent threat, we're talking about a gifted individual who is actually in the environment. They are capable and they use their skills all the time. They do attack, they use exploits, they use TTP or tactics, techniques, and procedures consistently every chance they get. They're like a heat-seeking missile. They don't stop until something's dead. An advanced persistent threat is a live, breathing person who is interactive. It's not a robot. It's not a piece of AI. It's not a worm. It's a human being who adapts and adjusts. That's what an advanced persistent threat is. And they are the worst challenge that we face in systems security. They're the ultimate nemesis. And the basics still apply. You can frustrate an APT. It's easier to defend than it is to attack. So the good news is we're going to have a really cool semester doing some neat stuff. I just need to stop and check to make sure you understand some things along the way. And by the time we meet on Friday, I may give you an opportunity for, I call it lightning credit. Is everyone familiar with Poll Everywhere?
No.
Okay. Has anyone ever participated in a live survey real time and shared a screen with results using your cell phones?
Oh yeah, with you. Yeah, I remember now.
Okay. I may not have done that recently. So Kareem and Akeem and Ms. Sander, you're new. If you could, bring your cell phones with you on Friday, okay? And we'll go ahead. Yeah, we'll go ahead. And what I'd like to do is just check the dipstick. Please read this study guide between now and Friday. And if we start class promptly and we do the lightning credit, with the cell phone surveys. I'll be posting additional credit for each of you if you respond with correct answers. All right. Any questions before we finish today?
None from me.
All right. Well, thanks for joining, and we'll see you Friday. Please pick up a copy of the textbook if you haven't already. And we'll clear for now.
I see you Friday.
Yep.
All right. Thank you.
Yep. Bye-bye.
Bye.